she is a lot more moderate than some of the other people that were being under consideration, and I think she's a lot more formidable as a presence on the campaign trail.
Well, despite her record, as you just heard from people like ABC's political director Rick Klein, the mainstream media is already trying to reestablish the California senator as a moderate candidate. Will voters buy it? To discuss, let's bring in the host of the Derek Hunter podcast and a town hall columnist, Derek Hunter. And we have media analyst and brand journalist Heidi Collins. Welcome.
Thanks.
Hi, Lindsay.
Hey.
Hey, so Derek Hunter, the headline out of the New York Times when Kamala Harris was announced yesterday talked about her as a pragmatic moderate. So let me ask you this. Either this says to me one of two things, or maybe even both, that the New York Times is finally fully admitting its complete bias, or two, the Democratic Party has moved so far to the left that Kamala Harris is a moderate. Because I view it, if she's a moderate, then I'm very tall. I mean, that's how I kind of look at this. And I'm 5'6", just to be clear.
The left, I'm the exact opposite. I'm 6'5". The left constantly complains about how far right the Republican Party has moved. And it's only relative to them because they've run off the cliff. Yes, Ronald Reagan could easily get nominated in today's Republican Party, whereas John F. Kennedy wouldn't get a daytime speaking slot in the opening day of the Democratic's virtual convention. So it's funny. But I would like to note that it's historic. I don't know if you've heard this or not, but it's historic. And Kamala Harris is historic, and you read that word constantly. I wish I had copywritten that because she's so historic for being historic. That's that, and trying to paint her as a moderate. Oddly enough, Newsweek said that she was the most liberal senator, even more liberal than Bernie Sanders. So apparently they're off the email talking point distribution list with the Democratic National Committee. But it is funny watching all of these people clamor to tells us that somebody who proclaimed themselves to be super progressive during the candidacy that burned before they even made it to Iowa, that they're really just a moderate. So what they're really saying is retroactively, her campaign that failed was based on a lie, or she's lying now, or they're lying now, or whatever. You can decide. But it's pretty funny to watch in any event.
Heidi, we saw this memo come out from these Democratic women last week calling on the media how to report on whoever the VP candidate would be. I think it's really interesting. They titled it, "We Have Your Back," denouncing stereotypes. But they also say in here, "We will be watching you." Do you think that they crossed a line here? Is this appropriate for them to be trying to frame how this VP is discussed and reported on?
Well, I mean, it's absurd. I've never seen anything like it. We have her back. And then the list of people who came together to create this wonderful prowess, anywhere from Planned Parenthood to, I can't even remember all the different groups. I'm trying to figure out collectively who they even are. But in the number of presidential campaigns that I had covered as a journalist, we never received any type of email, at least that I knew about, that was telling us how to cover the presidential election or cover anyone in politics. So, yeah, I find it ridiculous. And I don't know really what any newsroom in America will do with it. Probably file it away with all of the other press releases, because, you know, when you send a press release, it pretty much goes out the window in a newsroom anyway. So maybe it will be something similar to that.
So Heidi, just so I'm clear, let's put you back a few years, and you're sitting in your anchor chair at CNN. You get this memo. Does this have any bearing on how you cover this?
100% no. 100% no. And to be honest,
you're not worried.
Fair,
I mean, you're not worried about getting piled on by the left. Not you, but maybe some of your colleagues.
Well, I mean, okay, so that's a different question entirely. Like I would welcome that, and I would say, hey, this is supposed to be unbiased coverage. That's what I'm paid for. That's my job. So I would, as a journalist, bring it to light. I would show it. I would air it. I would invite them on.
You know what? That's interesting.
That you could do.
You know what you just said, though? It's funny. We're probably the only news network that's actually showing it. These other folks don't want to acknowledge it exists because they're probably obeying it. Derek Hunter, switching back to the New York Times, Derek Hunter, I want to show you that when Mike Pence was announced, it was sort of like a classified ad on the New York Times. When Kamala Harris did it, it was like you said, it was historic, and it's front page, beautiful glamour shot. It is unbelievable how there is such a difference in how they covered Mike Pence being chosen as vice president and Kamala Harris. I get she is historic, as you put it.
It's funny. It was Japan surrenders for Kamala Harris, that size font, and you needed a jeweler's loupe to find it when Mike Pence was named. I'm not saying there's any bias. I'm just pointing it out. I do find it funny that these leftist groups thought it was necessary to send this memo, as if there were reporters out there really about to dig seriously into Kamala Harris's past. And then suddenly they get this memo and go, no, we've got to get in line. They were already in line. They were always going to be in line, as evidenced by the drooling coverage we've gotten so far to this point. It's funny when it's more, I think that letter was more chest pumping for fundraising purposes, to put these groups back on the map and say, we've got her back, give us money so we can have her back. But does anybody really think that Chris Cuomo is going to do a deep dive on Kamala Harris and Willie Brown's relationship and how she got her first job in politics? I don't think so.
Heidi, we only have a minute left, but do you think, yes or no, that the voter is going to be able to see through the media painting her as this moderate that she's not?
Well, the voter has that personal responsibility on their own, don't they? They need to be watching all kinds of different news coverage. They need to be reading all kinds of different news coverage. This is what journalism and news has become. And that onus, unfortunately, always goes on the consumer now. So if you're interested in really learning what's out there and really learning who these people are, you do have to do it on your own. I would say quickly, this morning I did a little experiment, and I sat down and I watched a ton of different media and all the different channels and took notes on how they were actually covering Kamala Harris and this announcement. And there was one network, which will remain nameless, that I turned on. And if there hadn't been graphics up that would show me that this was a reporter speaking, I would have sworn that this person was in the campaign, was a spokesperson with the
so you were
glee
watching
and the clapping and
MSNBC.
the smiling.
Say CNN.
Well,
You
it's
were watching
okay.
MSNBC. How dare
What's
you?
the difference?
You watched the same thing I watched.
All right.
didn't you?
Well, we're out
No,
of time.
I just do the description.
It probably was. All right. Well, we're out of time. Thank you so much. Sean, I'll be right back with our take on some of today's top stories. Stay with us.